Everybody, welcome to the draft the draft review. We're going to be doing the top 4 best teams of this draft, and what teams made the best picks, what teams didn't make the best picks, and that's who decided the top 4. I took myself out of the name so there would be no bias, so people wouldn't think, hey, you put yourself in it or you didn't put yourself in it because of bias reasons. So we're going to break down who had the 4 best drafts here and go from there, okay? So the first person, the number 4, we're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1, like a typical, what you would see in a draft review. Remember, these are teams that you drafted well and they actually picked well also. The number 4 team, this young man, has not had a good draft, and I think all the leagues, he struggles with the draft. So it's pretty amazing that he made this list. An exceptional waiver wire guy. I think he's overrated in the trade market, but in waiver wires, guys like Cam Newton he's picked up. In baseball he's picked up guys like Mike Trout. He's been known to pick up guys on the waiver wire guys sooner than other people, and they've actually panned out very well. So he's an A+ in the waiver wire department. So far, you'd have to give him an F in the draft, and there would be no way in between it. But this year, he definitely deserved to be in the top 4. So, first person on our list, the number 4 person is Nick Goldblatt. First thing that you need to know, first pick his first round pick, McCoy. That's where he's going, 5th, 6th, around that area, sometimes 4. Not an exceptionally great pick, but a great player that he got in McCoy. Where Nick really excelled was getting Larry Fitzgerald in the 2nd round, Mike Vick early in the 3rd round. Those 3 guys were a great combination to start a team off with. The reason why Nick's not number 1 and he's number 4 is I felt like he faded off a little bit after that and then picked back up at the end of the draft. Getting Bradshaw where he got Bradshaw, that was way too risky. Giants are looking for a new back. That ought to tell you something. He's had some injury concerns, was not productive last year, could be a productive back, but where he got him, I didn't really agree. I love the Reggie Bush pick. I feel like that Eric Decker was one of the worst draft picks though of this draft. I think Decker is no question an off the bench type of player. So I think with that draft, I think that was a bad pick because he planned on starting him. And I didn't feel like he was worth starting right away until we see what we see from him. Because we don't know what you're going to see from him. And I think that's way too risky because he has never shown that he can be a starting wide receiver in fantasy. The number 3 person on this list, a lot of people might find it surprising that this person's this low. She's a former champion. She has some of the same players that she had a year ago. She's coming back to prove that last year, we already know she's dominant. She wants to continue her dominance. She wants to have fantasy football as a whole hers. We're talking about the only lady in the draft. We're talking about Nicole Collins. Getting Aaron Rodgers with the 3rd pick, I think was an exceptional. We all know Aaron Rodgers was the difference maker in fantasy. Whoever had Aaron Rodgers was probably going to win the championship if you knew what you were doing. If you didn't know what you were doing, then you would probably lose it. But she did one of those impact trades at the end of the year to get Aaron Rodgers. She traded Larry Fitzgerald, Julio Jones, 2 great fantasy wide receivers last year to land him, and it didn't work out. For the person who got it was me, where she kept guys like she got a guy like Aaron Rodgers, stepped in. She barely made the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers went on that run. She also had Eli Manning that helped her in that last week of the season to kind of clinch the championship. But she goes nowhere without Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers was definitely the most impactful player in fantasy history last year than any other fantasy players ever had in any year. So, and I think the second thing to remember is she got the tight end. Daniel Thomas won weeks last year. People don't want to recognize it. Oh, it's a tight end. He won weeks last week for his teams, putting up 20, 30 points. That wins you weeks. And that's what this is about, winning weeks, getting into the playoffs, finding ways. If you can find guys that single-handedly can win you a week, Daniel Thomas at tight end can do that more than anybody. People say, well, you could do that with any amount of quarterbacks. Yeah, and there's 10 quarterbacks that can do that. There's only 2 tight ends in the league that can do that. So to have that at the tight end position, I think is fairly great on her side to have that. Brandon Marshall also in the 3rd round, I thought was an exceptional pick. I felt like having Jay Cutler back. Brandon Marshall, people forget, had a pretty good year last year with Matt Moore as his quarterback. You had Jay Cutler, someone he's familiar with. They have the run. They could do the play action. We all know that worked so successfully in Denver, where Brandon Marshall was the number 1 fantasy wide receiver. I don't think he's going to be the fantasy wide receiver, but I think he's a top 10 wide receiver, and Brandon Marshall's definitely better than some of the guys that went ahead of him in this draft. So I felt like she won there. I felt like the reason why she's not higher on the list, though, her running back core. Beanie Wells is an exceptional running back, but it has to show it consistently and has to play healthy. Same thing, she got Halou. A lot of injury problems, but I like him as a running back. That's going to be a running team. They're going to run the ball, and hopefully RG3 kind of helps him out with that. But she got Hightower just in case Halou doesn't work out. And I also like Thomas, the running back from the Miami Dolphins. I feel like he's going to be a very key factor. Bush does get hurt a lot. Bush gets hurt. He could definitely step in for Bush and be a big-time part of fantasy. I think with the number 2 person, though, a lot of people are surprising because he kind of got lucky with some of his picks. But I think once you look at that talent-wise, I think there's only one, there's 2 big holes on his team. But I felt like he filled in for all those other pretty well. And we're talking about Jeremy Goldblack with the number 2 best draft. I think anytime you can add Calvin Johnson, a lot of people get mad at me. He was number 3 on my list. I would have actually taken him before any of these quarterbacks. The reason for that is I felt like I could get like a Michael Vick in the 3rd round or another quarterback that could come close to that. No one's coming close to Calvin Johnson. He is by far the best fantasy. He gets TDs, he gets yards, he gets receptions. He can make big things happen in a lot of different ways at the wide receiver position. I felt like then we had the 2nd best wide receiver on my board. I actually had a 9th on my board, and Andre Johnson to go in the 2nd round where he did. Just getting those 2 players will consistently make him high and ahead to start a matchup off because they can put up big time numbers. So he actually got the number 3 guy on my board with the number 8 guy on my board, which I think is huge. Also, I felt like his running backs could be better, but I do like what he did. He went out and got Ryan Matthews, even though he's hurt. He did get Steven Jackson. The thing about Jackson is a little bit old. That's why he's number 2. But the biggest hole on his team is going to be that tight end spot and that quarterback spot. People sleep on the tight end spot, but if you looked at teams that made the playoffs, Daniel Thomas and Rob Gronkowski was on all those teams last year. Remember that. And Aaron Rodgers. Those were the 3 guys that were on the most fantasy playoff teams last year. You can't deny facts. You can dispute points for points. But facts for facts say that those 3 guys were on more fantasy championship, more fantasy playoff teams than any other players in any other league. That's saying a lot right there. The number 1 guy, I don't think too many people can debate that. I think with a 12-team league, every team's going to have a hole at starter. But I feel like his hole is actually could be an upside at times. But the guy I'm talking about right now, Mark Ellis, this list off 3 running back names. We're talking first pick, he went out and got Ray Rice with the 4th pick. Pretty good pick. He's got Adrian Peterson, Michael Turner. Those 3 running backs, all 1st round picks a year ago. This year, all on Mark Ellis' team. That's pretty impressive. I felt like the quarterback, though, RG3, kind of a risk. I know everybody's higher on him than Andrew Luck, but a lot of people do that, and they got to understand that he's in a pass rush team, and that's what he's going to struggle with most. We see it in preseason already. A lot of fumbles. College, a lot of teams that pass rushed him fumbled it. He's got the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants. Maybe the 3 top 5 best pass rushing teams. So he's going to struggle at times with fumbles, interceptions, releasing the ball too soon because he's never seen pressure like a Pierre Paul or a DeMarcus Ware, or a Babin from the Eagles. So he's going to really struggle, I think, at times this year. But I think overall, though, when you break this team down and you add the wide receivers, getting Dewan Bow where he got him. I think that's going to be really helpful for Mark. I think right now, going into the season, everyone's trying to catch Mark. Mark's not trying to catch everybody. I feel like he's the best team right now. A lot can happen, and a lot can change. So we got to remember that. We still have the waiver wire. Last year, Cam Newton started the season on the waiver wire. Is Ryan Tannehill the Cam Newton of this year where no one's expecting it? Andy Dalton, a Pro Bowl quarterback, a nice backup, billing quarterback, was on the waiver wire. Guys like A.J. Green dipped in the draft. Somebody picked him up big time year, so you never know what's going to happen in the National Football League. But what you guys do got to remember, though, is the top teams right now are not going to necessarily be the top teams, but you should want to improve your team at all times to get better and use your gut over using what other people say. Sometimes you listen to ESPN and you go, oh, you know, Jones Drew isn't going to show up. Always go with your gut. I would have taken Jones Drew no later than 8th because of who was 7th with Calvin Johnson. I'm not going to dish Jeremy for that. I think Jeremy did awesome. But after that, I mean, 8, 9, 10, 11, for Jones Drew to keep dropping like that, I think it's crazy. We're talking about a guy that would be top 5 if he was there. He's going to play. He's not going to miss out on millions of dollars. I felt like, you know, somebody could take him. Rob Gronkowski, too. The 2 first-round picks that I took, I felt like were the 2 biggest falls outside of Calvin Johnson. But, again, at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Last year it was a quarterback tight end league. You got the best quarterbacks, the 2 best tight ends. You made the playoffs. You went on to championships. You didn't have those guys. You didn't make playoffs. And you know why now. Maybe you can learn from mistakes. Maybe there will be a tight end that's the next Gronkowski this year. Maybe it won't even be tight ends. Maybe it will be a great defense that can step in and make all the difference in the world. It could be a quarterback. I think with this, though, 12 teams, everybody showed up. Everybody has a mission. Everybody has their players. I don't think anybody had a terrible draft, to be honest. I felt like there was terrible picks at times. But I don't think you walked away and said, hey, everyone's got holes. Try to fill them as best you can. But never try to fill every hole on your team to lose a great player. We've seen this in past where people say, I don't want a hole somewhere, so I'm going to trade my great player. Remember, that great player wins you weeks. Those average players can't ever win you a week. So just remember that, guys. And hope you guys enjoyed the mock draft review. Thank you for your time and have a great day.